The shrill ring of Marcus Jensen's doorbell at 7:15 a.m. on a Saturday was bad enough. The furious pounding that followed made it worse. But nothing could have prepared him for the red-faced woman on his porch, arms crossed, foot tapping against his welcome mat as if it had personally offended her. "Excuse me, but you need to give me a key to your house immediately," Barbara Winters announced, her voice carrying across the pristine lawns of Oak Ridge Estates. Her blunt-cut bob didn't move an inch as she tilted her head upward to meet Marcus's bewildered gaze. Marcus blinked, still half asleep. "I'm sorry." "What?" "A key to your house." Barbara enunciated each word as if speaking to a child. "As the new HOA president, I need access to all properties for emergency inspections." She thrust a hand out, palm up, expectant. And with that, Marcus Jensen's peaceful life in Oak Ridge Estates imploded. Barbara Winters hadn't always been Heroa Karen. 3 years ago, when Marcus first moved into the neighborhood, she had been just another resident, albeit one who frequently mentioned the exact percentage she paid over asking price for her colonial-style home across the street. The transformation had begun 6 months ago when she narrowly won the HOA presidential election, running on a platform of neighborhood excellence and property value protection. Now standing in his doorway in pajama pants and a faded college t-shirt, Marcus struggled to process her demand. "That's not happening," he said firmly. "There's nothing in the HOA bylaws about mandatory key surrender." Barbara's eyes narrowed. "Actually, under Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the updated bylaws." "The ones you updated last month when half the neighborhood was on vacation?" Marcus interrupted. "The ones that were legitimately voted on and approved," Barbara corrected, her smile tight. "As president, I have the right to conduct inspections with 24 hours notice or immediately in emergencies." "And what's the emergency today?" Barbara straightened her already impeccable posture. "Your garbage can was visible from the street yesterday evening, a clear violation of Section 4, Paragraph 8. Marcus pinched the bridge of his nose. "Because yesterday was garbage day, Barbara. It should have been returned to your garage by 7 p.m. It was still visible at 7:23 p.m. She pulled out her phone, displaying a photo of his garbage can. The timestamp confirmed her ridiculous precision. "I'm not giving you a key to my house," Marcus stated flatly. Barbara's expression hardened. "Then I'll have no choice but to issue a series of violations, each carrying a $100 fine. Or you could simply comply and we can forget this unpleasantness." Marcus leaned against the doorframe. "Barbara, this is beyond unreasonable, even for you." "I'll take that as a no." Her fingers flew across her phone screen. "Violation notice sent. You now have 72 hours to comply before the next fine." As she turned to leave, Marcus called after her, "You know this won't hold up in any court, right?" Barbara paused, looking back with what could only be described as pity. "Oh, Marcus, courts are expensive and time-consuming. By the time you win, if you win, you'll have spent thousands more than just complying would cost." She gestured around the neighborhood. "Ask the Paddles how their lawsuit went last year." The reference wasn't lost on Marcus. The Patel family had fought Barbara's predecessor over an unapproved garden statue only to give up after mounting legal fees. They'd moved out 3 months later. As Barbara strutted away, Marcus noticed curtains twitching in nearby windows. His neighbors had witnessed everything but remained safely behind closed doors. Their silence was deafening. Inside, Marcus pulled up the HOA email from last month that he'd admittedly skimmed. There it was, a vaguely worded amendment about access requirements buried in 20 pages of landscaping regulations and paint color approvals. His phone buzzed with an incoming email. The violation notice, complete with the garbage can photo and a countdown timer. At the bottom, a handwritten note. This could all go away with a simple key. Marcus set his coffee mug down hard enough to splash onto the countertop. This wasn't just about a key. It was about power, control, and seeing exactly how far Barbara could push before someone pushed back. He picked up his phone and made a call. "Hey, Lisa. It's Marcus from Oak Ridge. You still do HOA law, right? I think I need your help." Lisa Goldstein's law office smelled of leather and lemon polish. Despite the Saturday appointment, she looked impeccably professional in a charcoal suit that contrasted with her friendly demeanor. She listened intently as Marcus explained his situation, making occasional notes. "Let me get this straight," Lisa said, leaning forward. "Your HOA president is demanding a key to your private residence based on a bylaw amendment that was pushed through during peak vacation season?" Marcus nodded, sliding his phone across the desk to show her the violation notice. "And she's threatening escalating fines if I don't comply." Lisa studied the notice, her frown deepening. "This is creative interpretation at best, illegal at worst." She tapped a manicured nail against her desk. "The good news is this won't hold up legally. The bad news is fighting it could be costly and exhausting." That's exactly what Barbara's counting on, Marcus replied. Your HOA president sounds like she's weaponizing bureaucracy, Lisa observed. Classic tactic, make compliance easier than resistance. She reached for her keyboard. Let me draft a response letter setting specific state property laws that supersede HOA bylaws regarding home entry. That should buy us some time. As they discussed strategy, Marcus's phone buzzed with text from his neighbors. Word had spread quickly through Oak Ridge Estates. Asterisk, hope you're okay. Barbara's on the warpath. Elena asterisk. Asterisk, just comply, man. Not worth the headache. Dave asterisk. Asterisk, we're with you but keeping quiet. Sorry. The Clarks asterisk. Lisa caught him frowning at his phone. Community pressure? Community silence, Marcus corrected. Everyone's terrified of becoming Barbara's next target. Back at Oak Ridge Estates that afternoon, Marcus found 3 more violation notices taped to his front door. Apparently, his grass was 0.3 inches too tall, his mailbox needed repainting, and his porch light fixture was not in keeping with neighborhood aesthetic standards. Each carried a separate fine. As he peeled the notices from his door, he spotted Barbara across the street, photographing the Rodriguez family's children's bicycles left on their front lawn. When she noticed Marcus watching, she smiled sweetly and waved before returning to her documentation. The following morning, Sunday, Marcus was awakened by his doorbell yet again. This time, Barbara stood flanked by 2 other HOA board members, Richard Powell, a retired accountant who rarely spoke at meetings, and Diane Meyer, who had voted against Barbara on several occasions but now appeared uncomfortable yet compliant. Good morning, Marcus, Barbara chirped. The board is conducting emergency property inspections today following reports of potential water damage affecting multiple homes in the community. We need access immediately. Marcus leaned against his doorframe. There's no water damage in my home, Barbara. We can't confirm that without an inspection, Diane interjected softly, not meeting his eyes. Richard nodded. It's standard procedure. Since when? Marcus challenged. Since the amendment, Barbara replied smoothly. Now the key, please, or shall I add obstruction of HOA duties to your growing list of violations? Marcus pulled out his phone. Lisa Goldstein, my attorney, advised me to record all interactions regarding this matter. He pressed record and held it up. Would you mind repeating your demand for unauthorized access to my home? Barbara's smile faltered momentarily before returning, tighter than before. We're simply following protocol for community safety. Without evidence of an emergency, without proper notice, and without legal authority, Marcus countered. My attorney will be contacting the full board tomorrow with a cease and desist letter. Richard shifted uncomfortably. Diane studied her shoes. Barbara's pleasant mask slipped. You're making a serious mistake, Marcus. This community operates smoothly because people follow the rules. I am following the rules, the actual legal ones, Marcus replied. Have a nice day. He closed the door firmly, but not before catching Barbara's whispered instruction to her companions. Document everything. That evening, Marcus noticed Barbara speaking with several neighbors, gesturing toward his house. One by one, it looked his way with expressions ranging from sympathy to judgment before hurrying inside their homes. His phone pinged with an email notification from the HOA, a community-wide alert about a resident's refusal to comply with safety protocols, putting the neighborhood at risk. Though no names were mentioned, the implication was clear. As darkness fell, Marcus caught movement from his living room window. Barbara walking slowly past his house, phone in hand, photographing every inch of his property. When she spotted him watching, she didn't even pretend to be doing anything else. Instead, she took a Monday morning brought a community-wide email from Barbara announcing an emergency HOA meeting that evening to discuss urgent security concerns affecting all Oak Ridge residents. The thinly veiled reference to Marcus's refusal was obvious to everyone. Marcus arrived at the community center 15 minutes early, surprised to find nearly every seat already taken. Conversations hushed as he entered. A few neighbors nodded politely, most avoided eye contact entirely. He took a seat in the back row next to Lena Chavez, one of the few who had texted him support. Quite the turnout, he whispered. Alina sighed. Barbara's been busy. She's convinced half the neighborhood you're hiding something dangerous. Barbara swept in precisely at 7 p.m., flanked by the full HOA board. She smiled warmly at the gathered residents before her gaze landed on Marcus, her expression cooling noticeably. Thank you all for coming on such short notice, she began, arranging her papers at the podium. As many of you know, Oak Ridge Estates prides itself on being a secure, transparent community where neighbors look out for one another. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Recently, however, the spirit of community cooperation has been challenged. Barbara's gaze flicked meaningfully toward Marcus. One resident has refused to comply with our newly implemented safety protocols regarding emergency access. Marcus felt dozens of eyes turned toward him. I want to be clear, Barbara continued, "This isn't about invading privacy. It's about ensuring that in case of emergency, a water leak that could damage adjacent properties, a gas leak endangering lives, or a fire risk, your board can act quickly to protect everyone." A silver-haired man in the front row raised his hand. "Are you saying we all need to provide house keys? Because my insurance specifically advises against that." Barbara's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "The amendment allows for emergency access only, Mr. Thompson. We never enter without cause." "But who determines what constitutes an emergency?" Lena called out without raising her hand. "And why wasn't this more clearly communicated before implementation?" Barbara's eyes narrowed. The amendment was properly distributed and voted on according to bylaws. As for emergencies, the board uses reasonable judgment as we're entrusted to do. Marcus stood up. "May I address the community, Barbara?" After a moment's hesitation, she nodded stiffly, briefly. Marcus moved to the front, facing his neighbors. "I've lived here for 3 years. I follow the rules, the reasonable ones, and I care about this community. But what's being asked now goes beyond maintaining property values or neighborhood aesthetics. It violates basic privacy rights and potentially state law." He pulled out his phone. "I've consulted an attorney who specializes in HOA disputes. She's confirmed that regardless of what amendment was passed, Florida state law protects homeowners from being compelled to provide unrestricted access to their homes." Barbara stepped forward. "This is hardly unrestricted." "I wasn't finished," Marcus said firmly. Several neighbors raised eyebrows at his interruption of the normally intimidating HOA president. "Barbara has issued multiple violation notices against my property since I refused to hand over a key. Suddenly my grass is too tall. My mailbox needs repainting, and yesterday she photographed me through my own window." Uncomfortable shifting and whispers filled the room. "This isn't about community safety," Marcus continued. "It's about control and making an example of anyone who questions authority." Barbara snatched the microphone. "That's enough speculation and personal attacks, Marcus. The board has acted within its authority. If you've got concerns about violation notices, there's a proper appeals process. An appeals process that goes through you," Marcus pointed out. Barbara ignored this. "Let's take a community poll," she announced. "How many residents support the board's efforts to maintain a safe, secure neighborhood through our emergency access policy?" Marcus spent the next 3 days cataloging every violation flag in his yard, consulting with Lisa Goldstein, and building a case against Barbara's harassment. The fines had now reached a staggering $5,700 and were growing daily. His inbox filled with automated HOA notices, each more threatening than the last. On Thursday afternoon, Marcus was working from home when a sharp knock interrupted his focus. He opened the door to find Richard Powell, the quiet HOA board member who had accompanied Barbara days earlier. "Can we talk?" Richard glanced nervously over his shoulder. "Not here. Maybe at Parkside Coffee in 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, Marcus slid into a booth across from Richard, who hunched over his coffee as if afraid of being seen. "I shouldn't be doing this," Richard began, voice barely above a whisper. "But things have gone too far." "What things specifically?" Marcus asked, recording the conversation on his phone with Richard's nervous permission. "Barbara's obsession with you, for starters." Richard fidgeted with his napkin. "This isn't just about enforcing rules anymore. At Tuesday's executive board meeting, she spent 45 minutes discussing ways to force you out of Oak Ridge." "That doesn't surprise me," Marcus said grimly. "It gets worse." Richard leaned forward. "She's done this before. Not just at Lakewood Commons, like your lawyer discovered, but at Pine Hollow Estates before that. 3 different communities in 7 years. Why does she keep moving? Because eventually people fight back like you're doing. But not before she drives out the residents she deems undesirable." Richard's expression darkened. "The Chens weren't the first family she targeted here. Remember the Paddles with their garden statue? Or the Gonzalez family who violated noise ordinances with their backyard quinceañera?" Marcus's stomach tightened. "She's targeting minorities. Among others, single mothers, same-sex couples, anyone who doesn't fit her vision of an ideal community." Richard shook his head. "Most board members don't see the pattern because she's careful to cite legitimate violations. But I've been tracking the enforcement statistics." He slid a folded paper across the table, a spreadsheet showing disproportionate violation notices issued to certain homeowners. "Why are you telling me this now?" Marcus asked. Richard stared into his coffee. "My wife and I are retiring to Arizona next month. I kept quiet too long because it was easier. Because our property value has increased 15% under her leadership. Because I'm a coward." He looked up, eyes tired but determined. "But what she's doing to you, what she did to the Chens, I can't leave knowing I said nothing." As Marcus drove home, his mind raced with this new information. He needed to share it with Lisa to build a stronger case against Barbara's discriminatory practices. He pulled into his driveway to find Barbara standing on his porch, phone pressed to her ear. When she spotted him, she spoke more urgently into the phone, gesturing emphatically toward his house. Marcus approached cautiously. "Can I help you with something, Barbara?" She held up one finger in a wait gesture while continuing her call. "Yes, that's correct. I believe he may have entered illegally. I'm the Homeowners Association president, and we've been monitoring suspicious activity." She eyed Marcus with unconcealed hostility. "He's here now, actually." With a chill, Marcus realized she was speaking to the police. "What are you doing?" he demanded. Barbara covered the phone. "A neighbor reported seeing someone entering your house yesterday while you were at work. As HOA president, it's my duty to report potential break-ins." "No one broke into my house, Barbara." She shrugged. "Better safe than sorry. The officer is just a few minutes away." "This is ridiculous." Marcus unlocked his door, intending to go inside and call Lisa immediately. Barbara's hand shot out, grabbing his arm. "I wouldn't go in yet. The police will want to clear the premises first." Marcus shook off her grip. "This is my house, and there's no intruder. We can't be certain," Barbara insisted, her voice carrying across the neighborhood. "What if they're still inside?" Before Marcus could respond, a police cruiser pulled up. Officer Reynolds, the same one who had driven by days earlier, approached with a measured stride. Marcus recognized him as Barbara's golf partner from the community barbecue last summer. Marcus's living room had never hosted so many neighbors at once. 12 residents sat wherever they could find space, on sofas, dining chairs, dragged in from the kitchen, and even cross-legged on the floor. Elena had organized the impromptu meeting, inviting those who'd expressed concerns about Barbara's leadership. "I can't believe we're actually doing this," Dave Miller said nervously. "If Barbara finds out, she'll what?" Elena interrupted. "Issue violations against all of us. She's already doing that to half the neighborhood." Nods and murmurs of agreement circulated through the room. "Richard gave me these before he left for Arizona," Marcus said, distributing copies of the spreadsheet showing Barbara's pattern of discriminatory enforcement. "Look at who receives the most violations and who receives almost none." The Thompsons, an older white couple who had lived in Oak Ridge for 15 years, studied the document with growing discomfort. "We've never received a single violation notice," Mrs. Thompson admitted. "I assumed it was because we followed the rules carefully." "You do," Elena confirmed. "But so did the Paddles. So did the Chens. So did most of the people on this list who were essentially harassed until they moved." Marcus tapped the document. "Barbara doesn't just want compliance. She wants a certain type of community." "But we can't prove intent," Dave pointed out. "She'll just say she enforces rules equally." "That's where you're wrong," Marcus replied, pulling out his laptop. "Lisa Goldstein, my attorney, has been building a case. We have documented evidence of selective enforcement, testimony from Richard and others who've left the neighborhood, and now this." He played the recording from his porch where Barbara had admitted using violations to drive out the Chens because of their personal touches. The room fell silent as Barbara's prejudice was laid bare in her own words. That's disgusting," Mrs. Rodriguez said, her husband nodding grimly beside her. "We need to remove her from the board," Mr. Thompson declared, standing up with unexpected vigor. "I've lived here since before Barbara arrived, and this is not what Oak Ridge stands for." "Removing her won't be easy," Diane Meyer warned. As a current board member, her presence at this meeting was particularly risky. She has 3 loyal supporters on the 7-member board. "We only need a majority vote from homeowners at a special meeting," Elena pointed out. "It's in the bylaws, the same ones Barbara loves to quote when it suits her." Marcus shared Lisa's legal assessment. While challenging the individual violations would be time-consuming, Barbara's pattern of discriminatory enforcement and misuse of police resources created vulnerabilities the group could leverage. "We need to be strategic," Marcus cautioned. "Barbara won't go down without a fight, and she's had years to perfect her tactics." They developed a plan. Each person took on specific responsibilities, gathering additional evidence, securing proxy votes from supportive neighbors who feared direct involvement, and preparing for a special meeting to vote on removing Barbara and her allies from the board. As the meeting concluded, Marcus walked his neighbors to the door. The newfound solidarity felt empowering, but he knew Barbara would detect a shift in community dynamics. He wasn't wrong. The next morning, Marcus found an official letter from the HOA board, not just a violation notice, but a summons to a disciplinary hearing. The charges: creating community discord and interfering with HOA operations. The potential penalties included punitive fines and even a lion on his property. His phone rang. Elena, then the Thompsons, then the Rodriguezes. Each had received similar letters. Barbara was striking back against everyone who had stood up at the confrontation with Officer Reynolds. Later that afternoon, as Marcus documented the latest round of violation flags that had mysteriously multiplied overnight, Barbara approached with 2 unfamiliar men in suits. "Marcus," she called sweetly, "I'd like you to meet Mr. Hayes and Mr. Donovan from Meridian Property Management. They're considering a contract with Oak Ridge Estates to professionalize our operations." The taller man extended his hand. "We specialize in covenant enforcement and community standards." Marcus didn't take the offered hand. "Hired muscle for HOAs, you mean?" Barbara's smile tightened. "Meridian has an impressive record of resolving difficult situations in planned communities. The board is voting on their proposal next week." Marcus stumbled through his darkened house, eyes stinging, momentarily disoriented by the piercing alarm. There was no smoke, no heat, just the relentless screech of the detector. He fumbled for his phone, switching on its flashlight, and scanned his surroundings. The smoke detector in the hallway blinked its red warning light, but the air remained clear. Cautiously, he checked the kitchen, bathrooms, and every possible source of fire. Nothing. With a chair from his dining room, Marcus reached up and removed the shrieking device. He examined it under his phone's light. The detector appeared normal, but something felt off about its weight. Outside, red and blue lights flashed as a fire truck followed by 2 police cruisers turned onto his street, sirens wailing. Marcus stepped onto his porch, detector in hand, as firefighters in full gear approached his house. "Sir, we received a report of a fire at this address," the fire captain announced. "There's no fire," Marcus explained, still groggy from being awakened so abruptly. "My smoke detector just started going off for no reason." One of the police officers, not Officer Reynolds, but a younger man Marcus didn't recognize, stepped forward. "We also received a 911 call from your address claiming an active fire." "I didn't call 911, Marcus stated firmly. "I was asleep until the alarm went off." The firefighters insisted on checking his house anyway, standard protocol. As they conducted their inspection, Marcus noticed a small gathering of neighbors in robes and pajamas watching from their lawns. Among them stood Barbara, fully dressed in a crisp pantsuit, arms crossed, observing the scene with unconcealed satisfaction. The fire captain emerged from Marcus's house. "No sign of fire, but we found something interesting." He held up a small electronic device. "This was attached to your smoke detector. It's a remote trigger. Someone activated your alarm deliberately." Marcus looked across the street at Barbara, who was now speaking quietly to the younger police officer, gesturing toward Marcus's house. Something about their familiar interaction made his skin crawl. "Excuse me," Marcus called to the fire captain. "Could you document that device? I believe it may be evidence in an ongoing dispute." The captain nodded, instructing one of his crew to photograph the device. "This is concerning, sir. Filing false reports is a serious offense." As the firefighters prepared to leave, Barbara approached, her voice carrying for the benefit of the gathered neighbors. "Thank goodness everything's all right. As HOA president, I feel responsible for everyone's safety." She turned to the police officer she'd been speaking with. "Officer Davis, given the recent security concerns in the neighborhood, perhaps you should conduct a more thorough inspection." The Oak Ridge Estates Community Center buzzed with unprecedented attendance. Residents who had never shown interest in HOA matters filled every chair, lined the walls, and spilled out into the hallway. The coalition had expected resistance. They hadn't expected this overwhelming turnout. Marcus stood near the makeshift podium, actually a borrowed music stand, surveying the crowd. Elena moved through the room, distributing printed copies of Barbara's enforcement record. The Thompsons greeted longtime neighbors who had previously remained neutral, while Lisa Goldstein conversed quietly with Detective Wilson in the corner. At precisely 4 p.m., just as Elena was about to call the meeting to order, the double doors at the back of the room swung open. Barbara entered, flanked by her remaining board allies and the 2 Meridian representatives. She wore a cream-colored suit that complemented her impeccable bob, her expression a careful blend of concern and authority. "Well," she remarked loudly enough for all to hear, "this is quite the gathering. Though I must remind everyone that official HOA business can only be conducted in sanctioned meetings." Before anyone could respond, Officer Davis appeared behind her in uniform, arms crossed. The message was clear. Barbara had brought official backup. "This isn't an official HOA meeting," Elena clarified, stepping to the podium. "This is a community forum to address serious concerns about HOA leadership and enforcement practices." Barbara's smile remained fixed. Nevertheless, any attempt to conduct HOA business, elect board members, or modify bylaws would be invalid and potentially actionable. Detective Wilson chose that moment to step forward, badge visible on his belt. "Ma'am, I'm Detective Wilson, County Sheriff's Department. I'm here to observe and gather information regarding several complaints filed against the HOA leadership." Officer Davis straightened, clearly surprised by the senior law enforcement presence. "Sir, I wasn't informed of any county investigation." "It's recent," Detective Wilson replied, his tone professional but cool. "And it involves potential misuse of emergency services, selective enforcement of regulations, and harassment, matters that fall under county jurisdiction." Barbara's composure flickered for just a moment before she recovered. Detective, I assure you, our HOA operates strictly within legal parameters. These complaints are merely the grievances of a few residents who find rule compliance challenging. We'll determine that, Wilson replied, simply taking a seat at the back of the room. Alina called the meeting to order, outlining the coalition's concerns with remarkable composure. Over the past year, our community has experienced increasing division, selective enforcement of regulations, and what many believe constitutes targeted harassment of specific homeowners.